So, okay, thanks. And so if you get some ideas from what we are doing, so I will share the screen with my slides. Okay, so can you see it all right? Yeah, perfect. So we might start by introducing ourselves personally. So I'm Daniela Monza, and I'm Education Training and eMental Health Officer with Mental Health Ireland. And Nicole, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, my name is Nicole Lonican, and I'm with the Education Training and eMental Health team, as well as the Education and Training Administrator. But we're both on a small but mighty team in the education sector, but we're probably like Mental Health Ireland all over everything that we're doing. So we can give you a good insight into what's going on and what we're at.
So thanks everyone for being here. I'm trying to send my slide forward. Okay, sorry, a little technical difficulty. So as I was saying, welcome and thanks for being here. We are like giving you a very speed run through what we normally do and who we are, and then we have a case study of how we applied this concept in our organization, so it can give you ideas. And after that, if you have any questions that you want to ask, please feel free. So we'll pass you on to Nicole now for the introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, so we always struggle with our elevator pitch, but I'm kind of going to try and give you what we do in a nutshell. We are a mental health organisation, and we educate, inform, connect and engage on all things mental health, recovery and well-being in Ireland. So we're quite spread across the country. A lot of us are remote, and we've got development officers in all the CHO areas, and we're quite community based as well. So just to give you a little run through, and I'm really glad this is in front of us, so you'll have it later as well in case we miss anything. But we run recovery promoting campaigns nationally and locally, such as Hello, How Are You? That happened in the past month, and I hope everyone got to enjoy that as well. We develop evidence-based programs and initiatives, and we create opportunities for communities to enhance and protect their mental health, such as Thrive and Woodlands for Trust. Or Woodlands for Health. So yeah, we have a lot of partnerships as well that we'll be working on and working with. So for example, the Special Olympics, we would be working with as well, Down Syndrome Ireland, and a lot of what we do is in co-production. So we're always including whoever we're developing our training and events for involved. They're always involved with that, and Daniela will talk a little bit more on that later. We have bursaries and awards, so training and education, that's obviously our bag, and we do a good bit on that. It's, informing the process and developing content and training. We also have a network of MHAs across the country, also doing vital work within the communities. We have our development officers. They're almost like our frontline staff. They're fantastic, huge amount of skills and experience. And like that, when we try and explain what Mental Health Ireland are, we only have to look to our development officers to kind of show the breadth and length of what we're doing across the country, because they're involved in all those target groups that Derv was chatting about earlier, migrant groups, traveller community. We're all across those areas, and everyone has a bit of experience in working with them as well. Yeah, so we can go maybe to the next slide.
Okay.
Right. So this might be a great place to start, because it's kind of like our fundamental, our foundation, and it might be a great kind of time to hark back to when this kind of began. So it's within our strategy. That's our basis. So 2022, we have this within it. It's part of our value and our system in Mental Health Ireland. So when we talk about our journey, it's a great basis and foundation for us to have, because everything that we do, it's within our values, and it's not about kind of justifying our work. It's already within us, and we shouldn't have to kind of labor on it. It's within our organization, and it's within our culture. And we were chatting earlier about the amount of trust and that all of us are given in promoting this and learning and researching and really making our work accessible to everybody, including people with unmet literacy needs. So back in the day, I think as I came in the door, I had a meeting with Helen Ryan from NALA, and to talk about budgets and stuff like that. We'll talk about a little bit more about that later, but I think I had a half an hour meeting with Helen to just chat about things that we could do kind of quick things we could implement to make things more accessible for people with unmet literacy needs. And I came out there with, you know, a list as long as my arm on things that I could change straight away. And that's what's really important to know about, you know, your journey to make yourself and your organization more literacy friendly. You know, it's not about budgets, it's about, you know, having kind of that value system within your organization, or a passion within yourself that this is something that's really important to you and that you want to bring it forward in your work. You want to make your work accessible to everybody. And I know NALA are very strong on the fact that, you know, literacy is a human right. You know, that also applies to us, and we also believe in that as well. And our theme for World Mental Health Month this year is, you know, mental health is a human right. So when you think about those two together, it's very applicable. It happens with, you know, it applies to everybody, and it's really the basis of, you know, your work and what you're doing. It always has a value. It's not an add-on. It's something that should be incorporated in everything you do. So you'll see there in point 2 of our priority area 3 that we partner with priority groups to understand their experiences to inform and improve the accessibility of Mental Health Ireland's work. And that's crucial, because if we're developing content and education programs, we want them to matter and impact the groups that we're providing them to. So, for example, we work with Men's Sheds a lot, and Daniela will talk to that later, but we work with Family Carers Ireland, they're another partnership, and we're currently rolling out a program for supporters of people with mental health challenges. And that's an area, again, that Derv talked about earlier, that can be impacted with unmet literacy needs. So in, you know, designing and co-producing everything we're doing, we're having literacy in mind, we're having accessibility in mind, and we're making sure that our partners are involved with that program to make sure it's relevant to whoever we are educating and informing. We can go on. Yeah, and then to just give a little, you know, lowdown on our little department. Yeah, we're doing a lot of bursaries. So, and our award on Kevin Plunkett Award there is for mental health nursing, and Tony Leahy is to, you know, encourage people to get involved with mental health and, you know, those courses and programs. So they're open, I think, this year as well. Tony Leahy is just opening. So if anyone's interested, you can have a look at our website. We deliver trainings to communities and to corporates, and much like NALA, it's kind of a system where one funds the other. So any corporate training is charged, any community training is free. And it's a great, you know, we've got great programs. And like that, Helen directly impacted our training brochures and made sure that people knew from the offset that any of our trainings, you know, there's no requirement to read aloud or to write. So really important to any of the groups here as well. If you're interested, that's one little tip you can implement straight away. We work with government departments, we work with you know, not-for-profits, we work with community groups, we work all across the sector. You could name drop all day, but that's not the point. The point is that we're educating people who need it the most. And then, yeah, last year we had a fantastic webinar, so we're fond of our own webinars as well, on mental health in a new working world. And we also launched our Wellness Works framework as well. That's for mental health policies within workplaces. And we have our Christmas mental health promotion campaign. That's always very popular and really resonates with people around the year. It's like a little advent calendar. You can have a look at it now. And it's got all different kind of media in it, video, blogs, and great advice. So we work with the likes of MABS. We had Pora Gahora on it as well, talking about hope and resilience. So we're trying to reach out to those groups who need it the most around Christmas time as well. And then we develop online resources about mental health. And just for anybody who leaves here today and feels like, you know, their organization could use a little hand or a little pointer in terms of mental health in the workplace, have a look at our policy document. But also we have free resources that are, you know, downloadable, and you can share them amongst your colleagues. So they're always a great resource to have on stress, anxiety, and recovery as well.
Okay, I think this is me. So a little bit about how we do things, the methodologies and processes that we use. So Mental Health Ireland is committed to social participation and social inclusion. So a model that we adopt for most of the processes that we use within the organization is co-production. I apologize if someone here is already experienced expert in co-production. I will give a little introduction anyways for, I don't know if someone is not familiar. So co-production lies at the very top of the ladder of citizen participation because it involves users of the service as decision makers or influence the decision making. So it's the higher levels of the ladder of participation. So very quickly, a definition of co-production is delivering public services in an equal and reciprocal relationship between professionals delivering the services, people using the services, their family and their neighbors. And by neighbors, we mean the wider community. So why Mental Health Ireland is using co-production? Because it has benefits. For example, it is a democratic process where people from the community are involved. It's strength-based, increases capacity over time. I cannot stress this enough. It might be maybe a little bit difficult to start, but over time it gets easier and easier. And it requires less resources as well, because it builds capacity as you do it. Then optimizes resources because you need less and less as you go on, develops relationship and sense of team with other organizations, for example, NARA or others that we have partnerships with, and creates new knowledge and learning when there is no, nothing have been done before in that area and there is nothing to guide. In this way, it's possible to create that knowledge that's missing and fill that gap. It can promote culture change, as we were saying. Literacy and inclusion are all a cultural thing, so it has to be in the organization culture in order to work on it. The outcomes are sustainable, and also the responsibility and risk are shared between provider of the service and users of the service. It has some challenges as well. We do not have to be shy about that. It can be time consuming sometimes. At the beginning can require a lot of resources because not everyone is ready to do it, and it might take some training or some building capacity at the beginning. It might need building capacity, might need ongoing support, especially working with demographics that are a little bit difficult to reach for different reasons. They might need extra support, and it is the responsibility of the organization doing the co-production to provide those supports. But as I say, it builds over time and becomes easier. So, and it can require a review of power and organizational dynamics. If it is an organization with a typical hierarchical structure, it might need some revisiting those power dynamics as well. Very quickly, this is the ideal, I say, process of co-production that has different phases. It starts by co-ideation, so people using a service and people providing a service getting together and say, this is what we need, so now how we do it. So they together design whatever service or policy or whatever they need, co-deliver together. They are both receivers because both learn from the process, so they both have new capacity, new knowledge, new they both benefit from the process, and then it is co-evaluated and then start again the process when it's needed. So it's easy to see on this nice diagram. It's a little bit more complicated to put in practice, but it has its own benefits. So I will start to say that when you put in practice, you have to adapt it to your organization, obviously, and what you already have. So to give an idea, this is the way Mental Health Ireland does it. So we follow the same cycle, as it was say, and between our co-production partners, we normally typically have people with lived experience of mental health challenges, family members, supporters, professionals, can be healthcare professionals, social care professionals, depends on the project. We have member of the wider community, people who is interested in the topic, other organization who have similar aims or whose aims relate, and sometimes academic or research partners to evaluate, especially. The thing that Mental Health Ireland does differently is appointing a person to do process control, in the sense that this person is not leading, is not making the decision, but is taking care that the process works smoothly, because if it is a big project, it might have several people involved, tens of people, and just making sure that everyone knows when is the meeting and appear on time and have that information is a job. So putting all this work on the partners can be unfair, because we are doing it as part of our work, but someone else might be a volunteer that only have 1 hour or 2 hours every now and then. So expecting them to do this work would be unfair. So there is one person appointed to make sure that the process works smoothly. And it's a lot of small tasks. I would see the role more as a facilitator. There are a lot of small tasks to make sure that everyone can participate. If someone needs support, they receive it. If our resources needed, that where do we get them from? Okay, so that person would maybe do the research, or this support role and facilitation role. And also for accountability, because being a charity, we receive public funding, we receive support from other organizations, and so we need to be sure that we can give the information where did this money go, or how the resources were used, and what is the outcome, and did you evaluate it properly, and all these kind of things. So there is an element of oversight, which is not maybe in the ideal co-production plan, but it's necessary to implement it. So then the project that we have, accessibility and inclusion, it is a team project. So it is about developing a framework for accessibility and inclusion to inform how we design and deliver workshops. And the reason why we wanted to do this, as Nicole pointed out before, Mental Health Ireland works with a lot of organizations, delivers a lot of training, is an opportunity to pass this knowledge on to other people and to role model to potentially thousands of people. Because if we deliver 100 trainings in companies and businesses and public administration, we literally talk to thousands of people. So it's a way to role model whatever we decide to do. So that was the rationale. And the steps we are taking to do this is develop a guidance document related to accessibility and inclusion to inform the development of new trainings, and then have a review process of all their trainings and see if they meet the criteria. And then, as I say, disseminate, communicate, role model what we find. So what is the benefit of the project to ourselves and to our partners? Because that's how you convince people to put time and effort into this co-production thing. So it can facilitate people with additional needs and or marginalized people to attend our training and engage in learning about mental health. So it is about eliminating barriers for those people. Then role modeling, as I was saying, for everyone that we interact with, develop a set of resources that can be like a legacy and can be accessed by other people, and they can become an important documentation that we have about the process and about how we do things and about mental health. And then also provide an opportunity for interested partners to learn about co-production, to try it, so they might replicate in their organization. Because, as I say, the model is clear and simple, but then when you have to put it into practice, it starts being a little bit more complicated. So they have an opportunity to try it, because we have done for a long time. There is a lot of experience, a lot of expertise, so they have a chance to try it. So that's another benefit of the project. And now I will pass it on to Nicole.
Yeah, so thanks a million, Daniela. I think the co-production part of it is so vital, because anyone who's here today, you know, you all might be working in NGOs or community sectors, and you're always working with your target group and you're always including them. But for those who are not familiar with co-production, and before I came to Mental Health Ireland, I wasn't familiar with co-production. And when you started like that, Daniela said, it can it's like a little bit not painful, but you have growing pains because you're like, why can't we just do this straight away? And it's so important you don't do it straight away. It's so important to get those people in and make sure that it's relevant. Why would you want to create something that's not going to apply to the people you're going to educate or inform? So to just kind of change gears, we're going to talk about the changes we've made within our organization that might resonate with yourselves, and kind of show the breadth of work that, you know, literacy affects as well. So these are just, you know, what we're going to cover. Our dedicated co-production group on accessibility and inclusion, and Daniela has given you a really great overview of what that is. And we're going to just delve a little deeper just to show how literacy applies to each of those areas. Then we have our Mental Health Ireland language project, which is hugely exciting, and we'll be working on throughout the year, which will, you know, literacy will be a key factor within this, because it's changing how we talk about mental health, and to make sure that that resonates with everybody and everyone can understand it. It's about mental health literacy as well. And then literacy focused changes in our work, so practical day-to-day stuff that you can do straight away that are really easy, don't cost money, don't cost resources, easily promoted within your organization. And Derv pointed out all of the benefits to that internally and externally, and we would echo that hugely. And then staff training, and we'll talk about internal staff training using the resources you have, and then where you lack the skills and knowledge, look to your partners, look to your NGOs and externally to get that training, to not to have it done for you, but so that the skills are now within your organization. And then Daniela will take us through the fantastic work that she's done on the Sheds for Life. This is the Men's Sheds project, where literacy was a major factor. And as you can understand, we're working with an older demographic of men who can be, you know, challenged with literacy needs and, you know, the stigma around mental health as well. So this was a real two-factor kind of approach to this. It was 50-50 on both sides, and Daniela did a fantastic job and, you know, changing the content. And then we'll give you a few tips on how to get started, and we will obviously be open to questions after that. Yeah, so this is kind of a breakdown of the subgroups that are within our co-production group on accessibility and inclusion. And like Daniela says, the kind of process control that's needed within, it's kind of obvious here now, because overall we have accessibility and inclusion, and within that we have different groups targeting different areas. So our training evaluation, this is to make sure that our training evaluation, so like today, if you leave here with a survey or an evaluation, you can understand it. We get clear information on what needs to be changed. Did you have any issues with accessibility? And always ensuring that you're asking that question and not afraid of the feedback as well. So again, we have loads of, you know, partners working on this as well. We have Carol from, I have to give her a shout out, from Usher Syndrome Ireland, who is fantastic. She works with dual sensory loss or deaf blindness, and she's informing as well a lot of the work that we're doing here. So it's accessible not only from an unmet literacy need, but also in that area as well. And then our development officer Connect Cafes, I spoke to them earlier. Our development officers are fantastic. You know, they're the lifeblood of our organization, and to ignore the knowledge and experience they have would be a complete detriment to the work we're doing. They have the knowledge and experience in one way or another of working with different groups. And what we've done in these Connect Cafes is target different areas. Like we have deaf blindness, we have unmet literacy needs, then we have the prison population, who, you know, we also facilitate to. Then you're talking about engaging men, and we have specific groups to deal with these areas, migrants, refugees as well. And what we're always strength focused and solution focused. What we're going to ask in those workshops, like a little bit of action research and a bit of narrative to the story as well, to see what works well in what we do, and also what we could do better, or what are, you know, the challenges that are coming up. So we're directly asking our development officers, like, for honest feedback on how our workshops are going down in those communities, and what are the obvious experiences that they have had that we could change easily. And then we're going to work on solutions after that. And then comms, you know, our communications, Daniela has again worked with our partners, doing a fantastic job on a new writing style guide for Mental Health Ireland, and it's now in our testing phase. So we have each of our departments working with this, informed a lot from NALA, informed a lot from their literature and their research, and ahead as well. We can't recommend enough the short courses you can do to upskill yourself straight away in being able to do that work. Again, this is another area that we're looking specifically at and upskilling ourselves in. We work with men's sheds, we work with, men across the country. It's a kind of demographic that can struggle with the topic of mental health, but also with unmet literacy needs. So men's engagement, that's its own focus group, that's its own subgroup. Then working with an interpreter, again, that will affect people who English isn't their first language, people who maybe have dual sensory loss or any kind of sensory loss. This is a really important one, and there's a guide for facilitators, and we actually are running this out. We're starting to work. One of our development officers is going to be holding workshops on this, so we're really excited to see what happens with that. And then inclusion of people with mental health challenges, because we're Mental Health Ireland, that's what we do, and ensuring the voice of those experiencing mental health challenges are at the centre of what we do. So it's just a breakdown of our subgroups. And then our Mental Health Ireland language project. So this is something that it's happening quite quickly, it's happening soon, but it will take again a while because it's co-production, and it's, but it's exciting, and it means that you get to include partners and groups from all across the country, minority groups, marginalised groups, to make sure their voice is heard, and that our language that we use in Mental Health Ireland resonates with them, and they feel that they can identify with it as well. So we're undertaking a review on the language that we use around mental health, and literacy will be a key factor in this. So that would be hugely important, that we have someone with unmet literacy needs in our co-production group, so that we are getting that feedback as we go along, that it's designed specifically to remove the barriers as much as possible for anyone who's engaging with that. Of course, our understanding of mental health is affected, it affects our own experience. So your understanding of mental health can be different to another person's. That comes up a lot in our trainings, that the feedback that we get from it, especially with men, and different groups and different cultures as well, that their understanding of what mental health is, that might not, equals mental health. They could associate it with mental illness, and that's not the case. So that's, obviously part of what we do. We're promoting that message of its mental health, well-being and recovery, and what mental health is. So it affects everything that we do, and it encourages stigma and discrimination in extreme cases as well. So we will lead on the co-production on the review of the language we use, with a view to increase mental health literacy and to reduce the stigma and lead change. So potential outcomes, and this affects anyone who's involved with it, would be an in-house glossary for all of our staff, and a staff induction piece, a training for our staff, skill shares, public training and self-directed training, connect cafes, could lead to webinars, and the possibilities on that really are endless, but it's really about driving home what mental health is, and a better understanding of what it is. And then our literacy focus changes in our work. So these are, this is going to be really important for anyone who wants to just take a little bit of information home. Including an accessibility needs question in all of our booking forms for trainings. Now that's a really obvious one, you would say, but that doesn't happen all the time. And before you roll out programs, and before you even have, even with your co-production groups, if you start to do that, or your meetings and stuff, just to make sure that you are engaging with the people who are coming to you, and that you're going to support them, and that they can come to your training, your workshop, your event, and they can sit there and take in the content. That's really important. So make sure you ask, and then support and accommodate where you can. And then glossaries, I think that was the first thing I took home from Helen the day I met her. This is so simple, but makes it so clear for everybody involved. So include glossaries in your literature, include glossaries where, there may be different terminology used. So one of our examples here would be our Wellness Works policy. There's language there that that's not in their day-to-day use. So we've explained it, our perception of these different terms from Mental Health Ireland, strengths-based focus as well, but also gives you an understanding of who we are and what we do, but also what we mean when we're talking about this within our document. A really easy thing to implement. including a disclaimer in all of our training and promotional trainings, and also like communicating that with your staff. Don't just pop it on there. We need to tell your staff that no, when you're doing your training, it's not about pointing at a person and saying, I want you to feedback, because you don't know their situation. First of all, they might not want to share. And then also acknowledging there could be unmet needs in the room. So putting that into action, as well as advertising it and ensuring that whenever you're rolling out anything, that's there, it's in our emails, it's in everything. We want to make sure people feel at ease when they come to a training or event. Then keeping literacy on the agenda during design and co-production. We recently just reviewed the content for our family carers, mental health and family caring program, and that was, that's just a constant thing, and we're talking about it now. It's just incorporated into everything that we do, and it's kind of something we're doing without a second thought now. And like that, it can come to a detriment where you're at something, you're going, God, that's very inaccessible slide there. But at the same time, your brain and your cogs are constantly turning, and you're implementing change that can help somebody else as well. And then just to talk about what Derv was chatting about earlier about internal, we include accessibility and inclusion on our internal newsletter to our staff as well. We're trying to promote tips. We'll share courses that can help. We really encourage staff to attend training so that they can upskill as well. So it's not about just feeding them back the information, especially people who might not be on the co-production group for any reason. It's about, making sure the change is from within. So that's really important. And then, again, staff training. So like I would say take home, look internally before you look externally. Of course, you're going to need the expertise of NALA. You're going to need the expertise of a head if you're looking into accessibility, and other organisations like Usher Syndrome Ireland as well. But I've talked about our development officers so much, I'm like a super fan, but look within, everyone has the experience. There's loads of people who are there who you might not know that they have this experience or training previously. And we run a fantastic Skillshare program within our organisation, and it's not just on accessibility and inclusion, it's on different topics that we have experience on. So we had, art, an introduction to art therapy. Miriam, who's here today, did the 4 horsemen of Gottman, so on relationship dynamics. So it just shows you the skill that's within, and don't ignore it, harness it and use that. And then where you don't have those skills, look outwardly. So for ourselves, we don't have someone who specializes in plain English training, and our staff are eager, thankfully, to want to get that training and to want to implement it in each department. So we will look externally to NALA for that. And just on that, I think what's really beneficial, we're working in the NGO sector and community sector, and I hope it kind of resonates with everyone here. Usually you would be hard pressed to come across someone who doesn't think this is important. And I'm sure everyone here today feels the same, that this is vital to what you're doing. And it's not a case of you don't want to do it. It could be resources, funding and stuff like that. But, if you can get it going, it's a great way to get this message out there. And I'm sure everyone is as passionate as we are. And we're quite lucky to have an organisation who supports us in doing that work. So yeah, I think that's all on that slide.
Yeah.
Then finally, we're evolving how we facilitate, and that's coming from our co-production group, but that's also coming from our Skillshare. So we can have a Skillshare maybe on our 5 Ways to Wellbeing program, and we can chat about how development officers have delivered that in different ways through art and through conversation. And that this will lead really nicely into what Daniela is going to talk about, men's sheds. But where literacy comes up, it can, having slides and standing at the top of a room is not always the best way to facilitate. So that can be where you're talking to people who, when we need to have like trauma-informed workshops and particular groups that might, English isn't their first language, or you've got unmet literacy needs. So we're changing how we facilitate in removing those barriers, removing the slides a lot of the time, and making sure that it's conversation style and conversation based. And that's when you're learning peer-to-peer. That's when everyone gets the most out of everything. And then again, art-based, it's fantastic, and to see what comes out of it, and also how engaged everybody gets. You don't have to be artistic. We've all done we've done our workshop on vision boards and everything, and everyone gets quiet, but we're all really in the zone, and it's a great way to switch off. And, you know, it's a great way to engage in it in different senses as well. So they're just ideas for anyone here who's facilitating, who might want to, you know, change up what they're doing, or just even experiment a little bit. So that's that one, and Daniela will chat more on the men's sheds now.
Thanks, Nicole. I'm a little bit conscious of time, that we ran a little bit over. So I will try to give you an idea without maybe in going into much detail. So we had this partnership with the Irish Men's Shed Association to deliver a mental health awareness workshop in the sheds. And it is part of the Sheds for Life program. We were starting, when I started this work, with a previous workshop that was called Mental Health and Wellbeing. And we were seeing that for some reason it was not very popular, that people was not eager to attend the workshop. And we understood that there were two main reasons for that. The first one is the language we were using. And the second, we got reports from facilitator that there was quite a high percentage of people attended with literacy and met needs. And also, I have to say, from my experience of seeing this workshop, also being an older population, mobility issues. So we had to adapt the workshop to suit their needs better. So what we did is, in accordance with the other partner organization, the Irish Men's Shed Association, we decided to review the module and make it more accessible. But we took that decision when we were already close to the next rollout, and we didn't want to miss the opportunity to do it immediately, because otherwise it would be months away before the next rollout was due. So we had kind of barriers. The first one was a short amount of time. The second one was that we wanted to work with the previous cohort of attendees, and we are based in Dublin, but the previous cohort was in Mayo, Galway, and Leitrim. So there was this distance. We couldn't ask people from there to travel to Dublin. For us to go there was, okay, one person can go, but then there is a meeting point, but they might have mobility issues, not being able to attend. A lot of participants, those last cohort of people, don't have the digital literacy skill to attend an online meeting, most of them. So there were all these barriers. So how we did it? We selected the leaders in the sheds who were had more digital literacy, so they could attend an online event through Zoom like we are doing today. So we coordinated with the other organization, and we interviewed them because they also had their own evaluation done, their own interviews. So we got from them the information of what should have been reviewed, what were the findings, what were the needs. Then they organized a focus group with the leaders of the sheds that could attend this online meeting. And we facilitated it and collected information from them, what they wanted, what they thought was working, what they thought wasn't working so well. So we had all this information. So the co-ideation happened. We had it with the other organization, who in turn had interviewed the participants. So it was a little bit indirect, but it was a joint effort. We had this knowledge from the actual users, and then we went to a training co-production with our own people. So members of the co-production team, there were members of the original co-production group for the module, the previous module, training design expertise, workshop facilitation expertise, and men's health expertise. And we actioned what the focus group has asked, like, these are our needs, and we said, okay, we have to implement them now. So we had this review process, we reviewed the module, and now it is in the testing phase happening, like in 10 days or so. So we are at that point. So just to give you an idea of the before and after. Before, it was the typical classroom situation with the trainer at the top and a group of people sitting facing the trainer. And it was a little bit intimidating because of the stigma, the demographic had stigma about mental health. So talking in front of the whole class was a challenge. And then a lot of participants said, oh, we don't like to feel like we are schooled. We are adults, elderly, we don't want to be in school like children, so it's not for us. And then a lot of the presentation was with slides. It might be more accessible, less accessible, but they are still a presentation. So there was some interaction, some interactive activity, but there was like half of the workshop was presentation. So after the review, what it looks like. Now they work in small groups around tables, so it makes it easier for them to interact and to talk because it's a small group, like a breakout room. And also there is time built in the session to do social activities. They start with, the workshop starts with tea and coffee and chat about small talk things, whatever they come up, because there is that barrier of I don't know the trainer, I don't know other participants, I don't like it, I won't share. So to break down that barrier, there is time for tea and coffee and biscuits. Then they have their workshop in small groups, and this is what the materials look like now on the right. And you can see it is much easier, white paper, A4 paper printed, and there are questions that are simple and simple language. For example, what is your go-to when you are feeling low? Very direct, very simple. They discuss it in group, and the knowledge comes from the discussion. And then it builds on the previous one. What ideas you heard from someone else that you might try for yourself? So this idea that are both teachers and learners, which is the basis of adult education. And so I'm confident it will be more successful than it was, because we listen, we try to implement the changes that the users themselves asked. We work together in partnership and co-production to do just that. And finally, what changed exactly, very shortly. So the new module is not in presentation format. There are no slides at all, so they don't need to read. The room layout has been changed to small groups around individual tables, so they don't have to work around the room to do small work. They are already in tables already there, so they don't need to walk. In small group, they can nominate one person to be the scribe for the group, so people who doesn't know how to write can just contribute, but there is always some people who can, so they can be the scribe for the group. Sharing personal experience in a small group instead of bigger classes, less intimidating. As I said, there is time built into the session to support the sense of safety and manage the effects of eventual difficult conversation. There is time for that. The feedback forms have been simplified and is accessible, and thanks to Nara for their advice on this. And also we are providing facilitators with specific training about how to engage groups of men, more specifically the engage training, if you have heard of it, or we can provide a link. And yes, for you, Nicole, the last tips of this presentation.
Yeah, I probably won't chat too much on them because I'm conscious we will probably get to questions and answers, but we'll probably share our slides afterwards with Derv, who can send them out to you. But yeah, we talked about the foundations, you know, commitment within your organization and people committed to rolling out this work. That's really, really important, and it makes your work a lot easier. And it's something that, you know, if you do need a budget, it's easier to ask for if it's already within your priorities. Acknowledge the experience within, share your knowledge and skills. Research and upskill yourself. You know, don't I wouldn't say don't rely too outwardly on you know, trying to get the work done for you. Do, you know, research and upskill yourself so that you can start doing the work from within. And keep literacy on the agenda. That's within, you know, your meetings, that's within your communications, that's within your content design, that's within anything you're doing. Keep it there, keep accessibility there as well. And then accessibility by design, you know, that's everyone's goal, I suppose. And like, you know, we're by no means perfect, but we're definitely on a journey, and that's where we hope to be. And it's to encourage anyone who's creating a document, if you're creating a Word document, that you're looking at the accessibility, you're including the headers, you're including, you know, anything in it, the navigation page, you're having a look at the language you're using, just to get your mind going on it. So that's just, if something you could take away, that would be one thing. And that's everything from us, I think. Sorry, we ran over.
Not at all. No, it's all good stuff. And I think the fact that it's very practical, you know, people love to hear how you do something. It just is more reassuring to get that practical experience. So thanks to both of you for that. It was really comprehensive. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, throw yourself on the mic, or you can use the chat, just letting you know we are recording if you want to put it in the chat instead. Any questions so far from anyone?
And I might say it's probably obvious. We're obviously available if anyone ever wants to chat or get in touch. Just pop us an email and we'll be happy to share, because like that, it's hard when it's all on Dala, and we understand that. So, you know, get in touch and we'll be able to help anytime.
Thanks a million. And I think one of the points you made, Nicole, as well was really good, was like, the reality is that most of us work in the community and voluntary sector, we're taking that open-minded approach. We're listening to the people we're working with to guide the work. You're probably already doing that. So it's kind of just adding literacy as a lens, and that approach is really good for taking a literacy friendly approach. And then some of those very practical things like you spoke about in terms of, you know, evaluation forms, or even how you create space when you're facilitating. Myself and Helen, who you mentioned a few times, Nicole, we were in the prison and we couldn't use slides because of security reasons. We couldn't have a laptop, and it was the best thing that ever happened, because we used flip chart and pens, and it was just more connecting with the people, more conversational style, and it worked really well. So totally, sometimes slides can actually get in the way of communication. So is there any other questions? Oh, great. We have one here from Anna. How can we get more information on the language support? She's saying here, with the number of different groups coming into Ireland requiring support, how can we better support them? That's a great point. Language as well as literacy. So you do, you know, with us in all, our focus is literacy, but there are obviously people who are learning English as a second language who may also have unmet literacy needs. And that's another angle there. We can send on some resources, Anna, to you, and that can be useful. We find that sometimes when you're making changes in relation to literacy, it does benefit language learners a lot of the time. You know, there is a need often, obviously, for interpretation as well, and sometimes that is difficult to get in Ireland, and I know it can be very expensive. But even some of the tools in terms of using plain English and things can just make things a little bit more accessible to people that are speaking English as a second language as well. And time, something somebody else mentioned in a training yesterday. The reality is you need more time when you're not speaking the same first language, and you need to get somewhere, and that, you know, emphasizing that with anybody, your funders or managers and things like that, because that is the reality, that you just need more time when you're communicating, if there are any barriers on either side. Does anybody here have any oh yeah, Anna, yeah, that is a difficult. Anna's just saying here in the chat that you might have children translating for parents. 100%. I've been in that situation myself. I used to do casework in relation to immigration things, and yeah, it's not a great position. It's not great for the children or for the adults. But there certainly is a lack of affordable interpretation open, particularly to the community and voluntary sector, but also I think in the public service sometimes. So no, it's definitely something that needs a lot of work. Does anybody have any other questions, or even, because I know there is definitely a wealth of information here amongst the people. Have you ever made any changes yourselves when you're working with someone where you think there might be an unmet literacy need? Like, have you changed how you've worked with anybody? Does anyone have any examples? I know that, for example, some people I they've just started using videos, video chat from WhatsApp, video messages, and voice notes and that kind of thing, you know, and that they've just realized because maybe somebody keeps ringing them and doesn't like to send them a reply to a text message or an email. They just keep making phone calls, and then they get, okay, their preference is they want to talk. And so maybe they get around that by sending voice notes or video messages if they can't have phone calls. So just one example.
That's we've probably forgot to mention that that's something we're working on with our Special Olympics program, where it's taken a while to fill out those forms, and it's really, you know, when you need the evaluation, it's really arduous for people, and we're trying to create a function where people can just voice note or they can take a video, but that's one of the more technical changes, but it's really worthwhile. Like, if we could get it done, it'd be great. Absolutely, definitely. And it's preference, I think, as well. Like, some people, even, you know, if there's not an explicit need, I think this balance between need and preference is interesting, because and it comes from that universal design approach. Like, if we have information in a variety of forms, then people can choose how they get it, to choose preference, rather than explicitly having to say, I have a need and here's the proof and the evidence, you know, which can be, again, I don't want to have that conversation. You don't necessarily need to. So that is a good way of overcoming that. Well, if there's no other questions, we might leave it there. Just to say to everyone on the call, Nala does these webinars regularly, and we can also provide training to organizations yourselves if you want tailored training. I'd also draw your attention really quickly just to a short online course we have. I'm just going to share my screen real quick. This one here, it's Understanding Adult Literacy, Numeracy and Digital Literacy. It's self-directed, it's online, it'll take around an hour, but it might be something, if literacy is not something you're very familiar with or confident about, just to get that overview. And also it can be very useful if you've got new staff coming on board in your organization, this is part of an induction process, so that people kind of get that introduction to literacy barriers and maybe how people are facing those day to day in Ireland. So just something I thought I'd share there. But I think that's us done now. If you have any questions after, we'll send on an email with all the contact details, and you can follow up yourselves with Daniela or Nicole or myself.
Yes, for just to say that our email address is training@eMental Health Ireland, and you get both Nicole and myself with the same email address.
I'll put that into the following email.
That's handy.
Yeah.
Thanks a million, guys.
Brilliant. Thanks everybody for your attention, and we'll see you again, hopefully. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Bye.